Very good evening to everyone and welcome to this next in our live stream series. This is Christopher Digan coming to you from our home. This is our live stream for the 14th of January, the first in-concert session of music focusing on a more serious and more classical nature for our year 23. If this is the first time you're joining us, I'm hoping this is going to be a very successful and very enjoyable year for year 2023 and that everything you wish for comes your way. I am going to be continuing with my live streams, as I announced the other night, indefinitely for the meantime on YouTube, free of charge. However, there are going to be one or two of those streams or an additional fifth one to the four that will be available only to the live stream donors. There are a small select group of donors who have been supporting me continuously, still to this point, and I'm very grateful for their support. And if you are a donor and you are especially donating by EFT to my bank account, please ensure that your name is clearly indicated on your donation. Also that I have contact with you via email. If you don't hear from me regularly, then please do email me and just remind me who you are. Or if I have your WhatsApp as well, that's also possible, because these select donors only sessions are going to be going out on YouTube, but in a private setting. So you'll be invited via the YouTube channel to view these private sessions, which are only available to donors. And you will need to be a subscriber to YouTube, and I'll also need to know exactly who you are. So this evening's session, I am going to play a beautiful, very spirited selection of music of great contrasts, for some familiar music by Scarlatti, some maybe not so familiar music by J.S. Bach, and some very familiar but quite contrasted and darker sounds, the Moonlight Sonata by Ludwig van Beethoven, ending with music by Schubert and Chopin. The program is a contrast, as I say, a contrast of moods, a contrast of colors, textures and sounds, and I'm hoping that the changes in pace and the changes in dynamic direction throughout the program provide a very contrasted and enjoyable selection. But I'm going to start off with two little Scarlatti sonatas in C major and in G major, very sprightly, joyous pieces. The first of which has these very positive trumpet call-like sounds, the second of which is very jaunty and very nimble-fingered. And it just seems a very positive and joyous way to start the year's sessions. two very short, brief Scarlatti sonatas there to start this evening's in concert session, sonatas in C major and G. I'm going to carry on with a substantial piece of music. This is a multi-movement piece of 6 or so movements by J.S. Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, the first of his 6 partitas. Bach wrote these pieces in a German style as opposed to the English suites or French suites, also conveniently 6 in each set, in different styles. And the English style is more substantial, the French style is very delicate, they're much shorter, ethereal pieces of music, and the German suites, the partitas as he called them, are quite substantial in their makeup and their content. The piece of music is an extraordinary complex number of notes to play, but all of this is bound together by a number of inflections and a number of motifs or details that bind the various movements together. Each of the movements is in a contrasted tempo. In other words, some of them are fast and some of them are slow, in a contrasted meter. In other words, some of them are 3 beats in a bar or some of them are 4 beats in a bar. For instance, the opening prelude is a very steady 4 beats. The second movement, the Allemande, is in a very fast 4 beats. The Corrente is in a very rollicking 3 beats in a bar. Sarabande, a very slow 3 beats in a bar. The Menuets in a very moderate 3 beats in a bar. And the last movement, the Gigue, in a very quick and a very fast, hello Wendy Pop, a very quick and very fast 4 beats in a bar. Very unique piece of music, I think, in Bach's output. He really tries something that Bach doesn't often do, or something doesn't often veer to, and tries to actually create a real virtuoso effect. This cross-hand playing is really intended to impress, I think, an audience. It's not something that Bach often went into, but in this piece it's certainly a very brilliant finale to the suite. So apart from the fact that there's this contrast, the element that binds them are the fact that they're all in the key, the same key, in this case B flat major. Always built around that particular tone base or tone scale, and there are actually certain elements very subtly put together. For instance, which is the outline of the opening prelude, for instance, is then reflected maybe in the outline of the Sarabande, of the Allemande. And the Corrente. I've got it wrong. Etc. I'm getting a bit muddled there. But this idea of that rising scale, especially in the, is something which occurs a lot in these pieces, and it seems to, even though it's something that your ear is not particularly focused on all the time, I do think that these little sequences, these little pockets of notes or these little inflections do carry your ear through a connection from one piece to the next. Wendy Pop's looking at me very intently. Yes, Wendy Pop, you're all alone here tonight. So it's a very contrasted and a very exciting piece of music, I think. The great complexity and the great difficulty with Bach's music to play is for it not to be sound just too notey or to sound a whole perpetual running of notes, but to actually try and bring out the colors and the phrasing structures. It's very difficult music for me to play. It's not my most comfortable point, but it's a great piece of music and I would like to bring it to you this evening. So this is the first partita, the partita number 1 in B flat major by J.S. Bach. challenging music there to play. The Partita No. 1 in B flat by Johann Sebastian Bach, accompanied by the rather rattling rumblings along. I'm sure you heard them in the slow sections of the Sarabande of the air conditioner. Sorry, it is incredibly warm here this evening, and this air conditioner is just having to stay on. I hope you've enjoyed that selection of Bach's music. Beautiful partita. Really, it's such an optimistic piece. It's sort of so full of radiance and optimism and sunshine. It's a really joyous piece of music all round, which is of course in great contrast to the next composition, which I'm going to play by Ludwig van Beethoven, and this is his Sonata number 14, opus 27, number 2. He designated a sonata quasi una fantasia, a sonata as a fantasy, and it's also very well known, obviously, by its popular title, that of the Moonlight Sonata. Now, I've talked many times about where this title, the Moonlight, comes from, about how the point in Beethoven's life when he's really encountering his encroaching deafness, which is really coming on to little bit by little bit, losing it little bit by little bit, should I say, which I think was a very devastating experience, in which Beethoven was in no doubt about the fate, the cruel twist of fate, that as a composer and as a great composer, as he saw himself, that to be dealt this terrible blow, to be losing his hearing, to not be able to actually hear his own music. And so the despair and the devastation is certainly reflected in the darkness of this music. The piece is written in 3 movements, very unusually opening with this very mysterious first movement, this fantasy element of color, not a moment of great imposition or great power to open, but very mysterious, very quietly. That is the fantasy element, a very unusual opening for a sonata. In the second movement, this very beautiful, delicate, very neutral, self-contained little minuet, and then the rage of the sonata, the substance of the music, the working out of the drama, where Beethoven really lets rip and engages with his frustration in a very meaningful and outspoken way, is in the last movement, Presto agitato, or fast and agitated, really one of the most agitated moments. Just to give you an idea again, so the opening movement, this mystery, if you look at any of the other Beethoven sonatas, for instance, even the Pathetique, a very strong start. Many of the other sonatas, like the Opus 22. The Waldstein, for instance. Even the great Passionato starts very mysteriously. But soon the great storm of the first movement is always there. But in this particular sonata, the first movement of the Moonlight Sonata is mystery, muted trumpet calls, death knells throughout. Darkness of the first movement is contrasted by the minuet of the second movement. Very delicate piece. Other minuets Beethoven might have written. A very light, charming, in this case, second movement, often the third movement in 4, but as this sonata is only in 3 movements, the second movement is this light, very delicate minuet. And then the last movement, Beethoven really has a series of raging outbursts. In many cases, the last movement of the sonatas is, in the previous sonatas up to this, would have been quite a light piece. forget how that piece goes. But in this particular one, the sense of rage is brought about by the driving, fast tempo, the left hand. It's very staccato, very dry, biting rhythm in the left hand. And in the right hand, these racing arpeggios up the keyboard. And the sense always that the fact that the arpeggio rises upwards, the sense of tension, the sense of drama is established by this upward rising moment and the great outburst. The outburst from very quiet to very loud gives you great tension. So if the music was going it would be the completely opposite feel. It would be a sense of establishment and resolution, but this rising feel, and then the sudden outburst, that gives you that sense of tension rising, that feeling of that the music is bubbling up and bursting, and you're not sure where it's going to stop or how it's going to resolve, how this energy is going to be contained. And of course, Beethoven does a pretty spectacular spectacular moment of unleashing this exuberance, this energy and excitement into the most constant and the most logical finale moments. So this is the Sonata Opus 27, number 2, the Moonlight Sonata by Ludwig van Beethoven for this evening's in-concert session. The Sonata Opus 27 number 2 in C sharp minor, this 14th of the 32 published Beethoven sonatas. The Moonlight Sonata there in 3 movements. Very dramatic piece, but such a satisfying finale. I must say, it's always a great joy to play that piece after all that mystery and all those contemplations of ideas, to bring that finally to a close. I'm noticing my air conditioning is making a huge racket, and I'm wondering if I can't actually quieten it ever so slightly. Excuse me for a second. Much better. Much better indeed. Leon's nodding at me. Yes, even Wendy Pop's wagging. Yes, when Wendy Pop, you think it's much better, much quieter, much less intrusive. I think it's going to really intrude in the recording. These microphones are very sensitive and pick up everything. I'm going to end this evening's session with a contrast of 2 pieces again. Just in terms of the mystery of the Beethoven in the beginning, the mysterious atmospheres of undefined moments versus something which is more precise and more outward going. I'm going to contrast the Nocturne number 1 in B flat minor, the first of the Chopin published nocturnes, with a piece by Franz Schubert, the first of the Drei Klavierstücke, or the 3 piano pieces, D9 for 6. The Chopin, very ethereal, very atmospheric, this very delicate mystery, is then contrasted also through a little bit of a key link from B flat minor to E flat minor, where the Schubert then takes over into something more robust. The middle section, very broad, general melody, which has such breadth to it, but then returning to this opening robust theme and a very unique chordal progression. This getting confused this evening. There's very unusual chord relations between the two. Has, I think, a very unique quality to it, and I think it's a great asset, a great part of the piece, of the appeal of the piece of music. But first, the Nocturne in B flat minor, Opus 9, number 1 by Frédéric Chopin. The first of the 3 piano pieces, D9 for 6 by Franz Schubert. They're 3 rather magical pieces I really must get to play for you one day and learn, play for you the second and third. Not as immediately, I think, engaging as that first piece. I think there's something quite magical about it. I like it very much. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed the Nocturne in B-flat minor, the first of the Chopin published nocturnes, to start off that last series, the last part of this evening session. Brings us to the end, to the close of tonight's first in concert for 2023. As I said earlier, I'm going to be carrying on with these sessions on YouTube, but there will be a number of them, 1 or 2 a month, or an extra, which will only be available to donors. So if you would like to keep supporting me, I know many people have in the past. Our donor group has dropped substantially, but there's still a number of people who are watching this, and I still know they are enjoying, having great joy and getting a lot of meaning from these programs, and I do wish to carry on and do wish to continue with them, having established the audience, having had the setup, having the facility, which very few people actually do have, a wonderful facility that I do have cameras and mixers and switches and technicians available. Thank you, Leon, for your support this evening. And it's a great opportunity to be able to bring music to a broader audience, bring music to a broader audience, which is something that I've been certainly trying to do for the last 28 years of my life. So certainly I will carry on in the best way that I possibly can. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you for coming along, and thank you to all of those who have been supporting me. I'm going to play out with a little improvisation, and I'll see you shortly for our next Wednesday session.